Welcome from Labor to Refreshment. I'm your host, Raymond Newby.
And I'm Marlon Elkins.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Fellowcraft degree.
The second degree of Freemasonry.
Today we have Daniel Priest with us. He's normally behind the camera, so it's kind of exciting to have him actually on this side with us.
Good to have you with us, Daniel.
It's good to be here.
Like to tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I grew up here in the Huntington, West Virginia area. I went to school, Capitol Midland High School, graduated in 2007, and working here in the Huntington area, and joined the lodge about 2 years ago. So more of a newer member.
And for all of the people out there watching, he's the brains behind the camera. He's the one that...
And the better looking of the
I don't know about that.
But Daniel's definitely been an asset to our lodge since he joined. I've learned a lot from Daniel.
I have undertaken many different tasks within the lodge, from the website to communications, newsletter, now podcast. Sat in some chairs.
Yeah. Currently, you're in the senior deacon chair.
Yep. Currently there, enjoying that role.
We've got a great bunch of guys. It's a very exciting place. Good place to be.
And as everybody can see, we're actually filming up in the lodge today. We're actually in our lodge room, and so we decided to move upstairs and have a little more open space here, so it's a little roomier.
A little more formal setting.
Yeah, we've been using this room since about 1900. Our lodge burned 1900. We've been allowed to use this, and now we own the building, and it means a lot to me, growing up here as a child and everything in town. And the lodge room means a lot to me.
Well, I guess today we're talking about the Fellowcraft degree, right?
That's correct. We're going to talk about the Fellowcraft. And if you see a break in the video, I apologize. I had to stop real quick. But we're back. Yeah, we've been here a long time. And actually, the building's expanded because originally there was a barber shop here, and there's been a few other.
There's a bank downstairs, barber shop. I think it even served as a post office here at one time. I got my hair cut, to tell you how long ago that's been, for 75 cents down here in what is now our dining hall.
I'll cut your hair for 75 cents.
And those were the good old days, Raymond. I don't know. If you cut my hair, it probably wouldn't be a good old day.
But yeah, today's topic is the Fellowcraft degree. This will be our second of a three-part series. Our last episode was with the Entered Apprentice, so today will be Fellowcraft, and then our next episode, of course, will be the Master Mason.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess I'm going to be doing the interviewing. I guess I'm asking you guys questions. That's a different take for what we've been doing here the last couple episodes. So I guess to start it off, we'll start with you, Ray.
Yeah, put me in the hot seat.
Well, you're like me. You're relatively new to the lodge. You've been in like right around. I thought we came in roughly around.
I think I'm probably 6 months ahead of you.
Okay, so I mean, coming in roughly around the same time frame. When you came through the Fellowcraft degree, what was your first impression of the degree?
There's a lot to it.
There is a lot.
The Fellowcraft degree is actually, I've mentioned several times to many brothers. It's the one that's always kind of stumped me the most because there is so much. The Fellowcraft is where we go from, the Entered Apprentice is where we're basically a student, I think is how we worded it last time, and now the Fellowcraft, we're actually the worker. But any job you start, even though you're, full-time or you're certified or you're whatever, you're still not as knowledgeable as what, later on comes. So I'm still in that aspect of learning, even though I'm a worker now, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Well, I think something that may shed a little light on that too is just like the Entered Apprentice degree. You're entering your apprentice.
Right.
And now you are a fellow of the craft.
Yeah.
So it's just like in the journeyman trades today. You start out as an apprentice, and then you become a journeyman or a Fellowcraft, and of course then you would achieve master status,
right?
Whether it be a master mechanic or master mason or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and at my point right now is, even though, I'm a master mason, I still feel like I'm still learning and, still trying to understand all the pieces that are involved. So
Yeah,
sometimes I think we kind of move through the fellow, a lot, we skip over the fellowcraft, or we kind of zoom through the fellowcraft instead of actually spending more time on understanding, what it means to be at the Mason before you actually
I
become
agree. When I came through, one of the things that I noticed was that and it is something that was referenced to me as well by, I don't remember who was the education officer, or maybe it was the education officer that mentioned it to me, but it was the mirroring of how the entered apprentice degree is also very much like childhood. And then you get into fellowcraft, and that's supposed to be like, okay, you've reached the age of adulthood. Now take all of the things that you've learned in elementary school and middle school and high school, all that basic education stuff, take that logic and reason, go out there in the world and start learning an actual trade.
Right.
Start learning how to work a job and go work through the life and go through those processes. And we're not there yet, but then later, the Master Mason degree kind of echoes the age of maybe even retirement, I guess, at age when you've stopped working and now you're looking down that barrel of retirement and mortality and the end of life phase.
Wisdom.
Wisdom. That's a good wrap up there to that one. So yeah, I definitely recognize that and what's the word I'm looking for? I definitely resonated with that symbology or symbolism.
Yeah.
That was from a movie. So yeah, I definitely resonated with that symbolism about the different phases of life and how the degrees mirrored that.
Right.
So if you had to explain the fellowcraft degree to a new Mason, somebody who maybe is a candidate, not even went through their entered apprentice degree, if you were just laying out what the fellowcraft degree was, how would you?
You go first this time.
Well, you talked about, well, we talked about like the journeyman trades and that type thing. Like childhood, your parents teach you morals and right and wrong, those type things. And I look at the entered apprentice degree as the first stepping stones of that. And then kind of like being a toddler, and then maybe this being middle school. We talked about the entered apprentice degree is like being your first day of school, and this is kind of like middle school or maybe junior high, to where you should know how to act and things, but still there's a lot of things out there to learn. It's Masonry builds upon itself, and like we discussed, your entered apprentice, and then your journeyman, and then a fellow of the craft, and then your master mason. And it's a stepping stone. It's a step, it's one of my favorite degrees. And we'll get a little further into it. I don't want to get to end before the beginning, but, I really enjoyed, being able to participate in my fellowcraft degree. But as far as explaining it to somebody that's not in the lodge, it's adolescence or early adulthood.
Yeah. I try to tell people too, especially the ones that I'm kind of, prepping before they go through it. It's the fellowcraft kind of starts bringing a lot of the pieces together, kind of explain certain symbols they may have seen, and have them give a little better understanding of what it all is. Now, the Master Mason kind of wraps it all up, but the fellowcraft starts laying that groundwork and that foundation for what's coming next. And so that way they, as you go through your lectures and stuff, they start seeing, oh, okay, that's what that means. Oh, okay, that wasn't exactly what I was always thought.
Yeah.
You start out with basic math, not algebra and trigonometry
Yeah.
and things, and this is kind of the pre-algebra or algebra stage of your life.
Yeah.
And I think I looked at it very similarly. I looked at, to kind of play off from your metaphor that you used, I looked at the entered apprentice degree as like laying the foundation.
Right.
This is the foundation of the building. And then the fellowcraft degree, in all the different things that the fellowcraft degree talks about and teaches within it, it was more, actually putting the stone down, putting the scaffolding up, and actually building the building, which is why, to me, I felt like that was the longest and most in-depth degree,
Right.
because it's literally laying out the tools essentially on how to build that, inner temple, so to speak, how to better yourself, and how to use logic and reason and all these different the arts essentially. It talks about literature and mathematics and all the other things that I talked about. Yeah, I blanked there for a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely lays out all of those different elements on how to take those and build that edifice,
Right.
of that inner temple.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame. I think a lot of times people want to rush through the fellow craft because, I came in as an EA. My goal is to be a master mason, and they don't spend the time actually in the fellow craft as like what they should. It's basically, okay, let me just hurry up and get through this because the next step is master mason.
Yeah.
I think they should really spend more time on studying and understanding what this degree is. It's not just kind of something to, kill a evening.
Yeah.
There's
I think
purpose.
ideally, I think the lodge it would be nice if we could spend, years in each phase of the process. But unfortunately, membership declines and other issues, people lose interest and they fade away. We want to keep membership rolls up, and so I think that is part of why we have went away from that. And I understand those reasons, but it would be nice in a perfect world if we could spend that time.
A lodge, he may know better than I do, but there is one up in Columbus, I think. What is that? The Arts and Science Lodge or something. Anyway, and they actually do go through and they spend a long time at each degree. It's like whenever you go in there, they're all about the education and making sure you understand. So you join, and I mean, it's a whole process that's laid out to where you do spend a lot of time at each degree.
I think the thing that's very important about the fellowcraft degree, and as Daniel mentioned, it talks about the 7 liberal arts and sciences, and not only that, but your senses even. It's just like in an Entered Apprentice degree, there's time that it makes you stop and think about things, and you realize that there's a lot to learn, and that's something about Freemasonry. I mean, like I say, I've been a master mason since 1980. I learn something about every time I'm in the lodge, and if I don't learn anything, it's because I'm not paying attention. But yeah, but how it's explained, like the 7 liberal arts and sciences and the senses, and how important each of those play a role in our life. And you think back to the stonemasons guilds. Those men, a lot of times when they were entered apprentices and came into the craft, they weren't very educated. We didn't have the system of education that we have now. And it was a time and a reason that they spent so long being a fellow craft, was learning the lessons of life. And a lot of that, I believe, was formal education.
And we spent, a month now? 2 months as a fellow craft?
I think I came into the lodge as an entered apprentice in April, and by middle of July, I was a master mason.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it depends on how good of a memory you have.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
And it's kind of a shame that we have, it takes away from Masonry a lot, because I think we overemphasize sometimes the memory aspects of Masonry. We're impressed by some of the lectures and stuff that we hear, and the charges and things that are given from memory, and it is amazing. But just because you can memorize something doesn't mean you understand it.
Right.
I was going to mention that. I think that's an Einstein quote, if I'm not mistaken, that unless you can explain it so that a 5-year-old could understand it, then you don't truly understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where we need to really take our time and learn from the lessons and stop and think about it in the simpler terms. I mean, to me, I'm a pretty simple person when it comes to that type of stuff.
I do think that we focus too much on memorizing just the words without actually knowing what they mean, and so then we come in and then we just repeat what we were taught. But you think about a parrot can do that. We're supposed to be better than parrots, so
It's true.
that's why I know the few people I've coached, I've really tried to, as we've gone through a lot of stuff and I'm teaching them, I try to make sure they understand what it is, what it means, and not just, okay, repeat this word here.
Yeah, and make sure you say it, enunciate it correctly.
Right. Yeah. Some of those words are hard.
Yeah, I agree. I do think I think there is a trap that we fall into of putting too much emphasis on just the memorization, get through the catechism, if you want to call it that, to get to the point where you can become a master mason, and then after that, everything drops off.
Right.
I think we lose focus on the lodge is there to make you a better person, and digging into, and I think a lodge would benefit from having set meetings around how do we take the information that we get from the degree, the teachings from the degree, and apply it to life, and maybe have some curriculum around that to have a better focus on it, so that it doesn't just get shifted to the back burner and people just kind of start treating the lodge as a social club.
And that's I was going to say the problem that we'll run into if we don't, like you said, is all the people who understand it will eventually be gone, and all the people who are no longer or didn't learn it are now the ones that are the mentors, and so we'll actually lose all that knowledge there.
In Ohio, in which I am the lodge education officer, in Ohio we have that position. It's an appointed position. The master of the lodge appoints an education officer every year. And that's one of the struggles of being an education officer, is whenever we have the majority of people here, which is at a stated or business meeting night, it's a mixed crowd. And now we can have entered apprentices, fellow crafts, and master masons in that business meeting. Years ago, it was for master masons only. But several years ago that changed, and now we're allowed to open the lodge in whatever degree. If we have an entered apprentice here, we try to do it in an entered apprentice degree. But the thing of it is, when you get up to do a lesson, or if you take a lesson, some of the basic lessons that are taught in masonry. Some of the guys that's been here forever, which are the majority of the people here, you kind of see them drifting off and everything. Right. And it's really hard to come up with education programs that are exciting and keep everybody's interest,
Right.
And
you only get like 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, it should be a little longer, and you can take as long as you want, but
you only got their attention span. 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
You know how that works.
Once you lose their attention, then
Exactly.
you got to get back.
And you want to say things that are beneficial, that people will learn from or stop and think, wow, I didn't really realize that or something. But it's hard to come up with those old wow moments.
Yeah, and a lot of people are visual learners, so just getting up and lecturing, sometimes it's difficult to grab their attention. Sometimes you have to, have some tricks.
If there was a way to have some of the more operative stonemasons that might be within the lodge come up with creative ways to kind of blend the education program with some actual operative masonry here in the room, that would be kind of neat. At least it'd be different. It'd be something that grabbed people's attention.
I will say though, you do well at the education officer. I mean, every meeting we have some type of program here.
Try to have, and the master, Brother Nathan, our worshipful master this year, we even had an education night. It's good to have that. We've done things, some of the more light events and stuff like that before in the past that were even open to the public. The Grand Lodge also has a list of guest speakers and stuff that we can pull from, resources to different people that can come in and teach different lessons and things. And that's the thing, tying it all in with the fellowcraft degree is we should always try to continue our education, no matter what level we are or what degree we're in, but to try to learn something and to try to always better ourselves. But, the fellowcraft degree, it gets pretty in-depth. You're even talking about architecture and things, which are some complex concepts.
So not to put you on the spot, but to the best of your knowledge, could you kind of explain to us the origins of the fellowcraft degree, where that comes from?
I've read a lot of things, and it's kind of like a lot of other things. You can read whatever you want. It's somebody's opinion, but I've read that in the past there were only 2 degrees. The Entered Apprentice and the Fellowcraft, and you gained all the knowledge you needed to become a Mason through the Fellowcraft degree. And I don't know exactly what year it was, but it was changed into a 3-degree system. And I should have read up on that.
You know, you're going to put him on a spot.
Well, you never know. These podcasts or YouTube videos it'll morph into. But, it's all based on the journeyman system of building the Stonemasons Guild, the Stone Masons Guild, and the building of the grand cathedrals throughout Europe and things, and how that men were able to recognize one another by the ability of their craft, by the work and the ways that they had to distinguish themselves, because a lot of them back during that time were uneducated. And, Freemasonry, whenever, we're talking about operative masonry instead of speculative. And speculative masonry, men were allowed to become members of the Masonic organization that were not stonemasons. Right. And, you can read down throughout history, a lot of the Masonic books and encyclopedias and things will have different dates and times when that's happened. There again, it's not a very good answer.
Well, so you had mentioned the 7 liberal arts and then the 4 senses?
5
senses. So 7 liberal arts, 5 senses. Could you elaborate more on those that are talked about within the degree?
Is it grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music?
Yeah.
What's the last? Stars, astronomy.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
There you go. I got it. Now you can talk about them.
Yeah. Well, I can say hearing, tasting, smelling, seeing.
So I can obviously, I can picture in my head, if you're, an 18-year-old and you've come of age, you're being kicked out of the house, you're out into the world to go get your first job. Obviously, these areas of study are going to be things you're going to have to rely on and advance yourself in to be able to survive in the world.
And actually, and even in today's day, back then they really needed to know this stuff. But even in today's day, now astronomy maybe not so much because now we got GPS and everything. But still, understanding astronomy is pretty important. But each of those pieces is what pretty much builds up a man. If you think about it, if you go to college, what do they make you study? They make you study English, or which is grammar, all the liberal arts stuff, and it teaches you how to think. And the reason why the colleges do it, it's I'm going to go be, a mariner or whatever it is. I'm going to a banker or something. Do I really need to know all this stuff? But even those classes we call the BS classes, that what they do is teach you how to think, how to problem solve, how to reason. Mm-hmm. So even though it doesn't have anything to do with your degree necessarily, it's still playing a part in being a better person. And I think that's kind of where all of our liberal arts and science come from. It's the same concept. It's just that instead of me going and paying $60,000 at a college, I come here and I do it on my own, so to speak. So I'm still being taught this stuff in order to be a better thinker and how to reason and how to.
So if we were like in the medieval ages and I was in a stonemasons guild and the guild was trying to encourage me to study literature, grammar, arithmetic, astronomy, etc., I could see how that plays into, we want you to be more educated to build yourself up as a better man. We want you to be able to travel to different countries and know how to survive, know how to, take care of yourself, know how to get by. But I can also see from a stonemason specifically, from their perspective, educating themselves on their craft and getting better and better at that to be able to be a better craftsman. I get that.
And remember, our goal is to be better men, and so as opposed to building up temples now we're building up ourselves.
Yeah. You stop and think even how we're just discovering a lot of things now about ancient civilizations and stuff, and just nearby us, with Serpent Mound and how solar events and things affect, and the reasoning for, so they could distinguish certain cycles and times of the year and things. I mean, if we want to get conspiracy theories in here,
Oh, I love those.
we
Yeah.
could even talk about Stonehenge and some of the
that's
pyramids.
that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
But
So
really, even like the astronomy part, some say like Stonehenge was this giant clock and things, that distinguish the seasons and stuff, and there could be some truth by that, because just like it's astronomy, I mean, people that you didn't have anything else to do but study the stars,
Right.
I mean, you could learn a lot, and I think we've lost a lot
Right.
when it comes to that type of education.
Well, we got our phones now.
yeah, fair. Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So I do also,
Charts.
yeah, I do recognize that the historical significance as well in the 16 and 1700s, when speculative masonry started to kind of take hold within the lodges, and you had the dynamic shift of more speculative masons within the lodge than actual operative masons. I do recognize that as because that stretched across class, and you had people of the aristocratic class and royalty, even in some cases you had people like Mozart, people that were in the higher class, and then you had common people that were in many cases the poorest of the poor, and they were all members of the same lodge, and there was a levelness or an equality about them. They could share ideas. It actually acted as refining school on both ends. The upper class got to see and understand things that were going on with the lower classes, and the lower classes were able to learn some of those refining points about upper society and about the things that when you don't have to go out and labor all day to survive, when you're able to just, because you've got money and you've got luxury and you can just study the arts, the things that you can focus on, both classes were helping each other learn more and building each other up because of sharing ideas. So I definitely respect the lodge for that aspect of it, but I do see how that plays into our topic today with the different liberal arts that are talked about in the Fellowcraft.
You're gonna have to.
That's okay. So we'll just pivot to something else here.
Knew where I was going.
Within the degree, there is a discussion about the middle chamber lectures. We're not going to get into specifics because we don't want to step over any lines there with what's actually taught in the degree, but there is a mention of the middle chamber lecture. So that's a centerpiece of the Fellowcraft degree. What do you think is the most important lesson that it teaches us as Masons?
Well, I think it's the important thing for me was to listen.
Yeah.
To
be a good student, maybe.
Yeah, to be a good student, to be prepared, and to realize that I don't know everything that there is to know. There's a lot of things out there that my brothers can help me with, no matter what stage of life I'm in.
It's like a humbleness.
Humbleness, yeah.
The willingness to learn.
A willingness to learn.
Yeah.
The part that I liked about the Fellowcraft degree and why it's one of my favorite degrees is really not because it's shorter, but because you actually don't just sit and listen to the Fellowcraft lecture. You're taking a part in it, and you're not put on the spot by any means. Along the way, you listen and you learn, and just like we have a brother that does that lecture very well, and I mean, it's just like a conversation. And then for you to realize once it's finished that that's something that he memorized word for word, it's utterly amazing, to have witnessed that and been a part of it.
No, whenever I went through the thing, I remember is like there's a lot of, there's a big emphasis on education, there's a big emphasis on learning, and there's a reason for all this learning. And, as you get older, you kind of get out of the whole learning, it's like you pick up stuff here and there, but to sit down and study, as we get older, we seem to do less and less of actually studying. I mean, we're still picking up knowledge here and there, but it was kind of a reminder to me, the need to study, not just go out and read Stephen King books, but go out and read books that are actually going to provide me, with information.
Another thing too is, as we're given more of the tools of Freemasonry, and to listen to the description of these tools and what they do and how you can apply the principles of what that tool done within the building, you can apply that principle to your life. I mean, it opens your eyes.
So there's several things that are mentioned in the degree with regards to the winding staircase, the different symbols that show up, the pillars, the wages that show up. Is there any one of them that stands out to you as kind of capturing the essence of the degree?
Hecatomb.
Okay.
That's something I took from it. That's not a secret. I mean, that's just a word, but
So that the hecatomb,
battles,
that that actually
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you learn about so much. I mean, ancient battles, everything. I mean, it's hard to believe it. Just in that shorter period of time, so many things can be talked about, discussed.
To me, it was the wages.
That's what I was gonna say.
Wages were the one thing, because I mean that's the first time that you're given something. And as a candidate coming through, you're given your first wages. So, and that was kind of the realization that you've reached a level where you can earn a wage. And very similar to coming to age in life, you're a kid and mom and dad have provided for you your whole life. You finally go out and you get your first job and you get your first paycheck, and that's like monumental, life-changing experiences.
It's the very sustenance of life.
I still have my wages put away.
So to me, that was the symbol that that jumped out at me the most.
Boy, I enjoy the fellowcraft degree.
I guess kind of shifting into more of the philosophical range. We've already been touching on a lot of it. Why do you think the education, well, let's start off. The fellowcraft degree emphasizes the liberal arts, like we mentioned. Why do you think education and knowledge are highlighted so strongly at this stage?
I think it's about getting along in life. It's about learning how to communicate with people we meet, whether they be of different religions or different political views or whatever. I think it gives you the tools that you need to realize, open your mind, and allow you to think about things that, from somebody else's perspective. You don't have to agree with them. You could still walk away believing the things that you believe and the reasons you have. But and they can as well. And you're not to argue about those type things, but it opens your mind. And I think, kind of, this is a grand idea that I have, but I think that that's one reason where Freemasonry has helped to build our whole country, because it's allowed people to come together from different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, different creeds, different sects, to come together and work together. And even though you don't agree with each other on everything, but walk away, because at the end of the day, knowing the decisions you made and the things that you accomplished help build everybody up, not only yourself and your family and your friends, but all humanity.
Yeah, if you think about back, well, in today's time, if somebody's on one side of the political aisle, it's, oh, you're on the other side, they won't talk to them or have nothing to do with them. It's
the world has definitely got way more polarized.
Yeah. Whereas, in here, we don't know what side. We can probably tell who's on which side, but in reality, it doesn't matter. We keep that stuff out, and then we talk about the stuff that we can build up.
And we can disagree on vehemently outside.
Oh, yeah.
But you come together, and when Masons come together, whether it be on the city council or whatever, a lot of people have a concept in their mind that they're always just trying to help each other, and that's couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
Masonry is about helping all mankind.
So as a side note or sidebar for just a moment, because I know I've heard this come up before, I have had people bring it to me that Masonry puts restrictions on Masons on what they can and can't say. So I just wanted to clarify for people watching this, if they're not familiar with what happens within the lodge, we do not allow for the discussion of religion or the discussion of politics within the lodge building. Now, it doesn't put a total bar on members from discussing it outside of the lodge. Obviously, Masons can they can go get a coffee and have a discussion anyway.
Yeah.
And that's a regular occurrence. No. But within the lodge building itself, we do keep those topics off limits.
Right, and that's to keep harmony.
Yeah.
Because those are the two most divisive topics, because people believe 100% what they believe religious, and they believe what they believe politics.
Yep.
Personally, I like hearing all different religions. I like hearing, it's probably not going to change my mind, but I like seeing, kind of what their thoughts are and stuff. But within the lodge, because it is so divisive, it's easier just to keep it out. It's simple. It's a simple thing. We don't talk about it, and then it's fine. And then, like you said, once we leave the lodge, because we go about, we vote for who we want to vote for, who we feel is best for our country or our city. We go to the church that we feel is, best for us and our family. But when we come in a lodge, we just leave those two things out and we talk about everything else.
Well, that's even like morality, morals, the morals that I've been taught, and now with, a lot of the things that you see on TV and things that's been on the internet, a lot of these video games and stuff, and a lot of the things that happen in society, people blame everything, but having a moral compass, even like language and things. People use language now that you hear out in public that just a few years ago, and things that we see on TV, just 25 years ago, you would have never seen some of these things on TV. Does that mean it was always wrong or whatever? But the thing of it is, there's very few places that teach morals anymore. And whenever, we're trying to be respectful out in our community and things, and the standards that we set for ourselves should be very high.
And one thing we are taught, like, we can talk about whatever we want outside the lodge, but we still are held to kind of a higher standard on how we communicate, of course. So, we always want to be mindful of how we come across to other people, because, we should hold ourselves to a higher standard and everything, because we've been taught how to do it.
Yeah.
And therefore, the way we communicate will be a little different than, maybe somebody who isn't within the lodge.
I was told once by a wise gentleman, he told me that, he said, there's two things that'll change your life. He said, number one are the books you read, and he said, other is the people you meet. And, the things and the people that I look up to in my life, they live by a higher moral code. Mm-hmm. Something that I always wanted to, I want to be like that, whether it be in dealings, in the public, buying and selling, or the language you use, all that it's important. Mm-hmm. And as Masons and myself as a Christian, it's important to me how I'm perceived, because like we refer to Masonry as light. We're the only light some people see, and they're judging all of Masonry by the light they see from us. And if we're no different than them, saying it's us and them, we're all in this together. But if we're no different, or we don't have a higher moral standing, or if we don't emphasize, education and the things that lift everyone up and make a level playing field, then we are no better off than. And
that's kind of where the fellowcraft comes in, to teach you the grammar, the rhetoric, the logic, on how to present yourself to the public, well, not necessarily the public, but present yourself, as a whole. Yeah. And that way, whenever people perceive you, they can tell.
And that ties back into one of the lessons from the Entered Apprentice about when you're introduced to the square and compass.
Right.
The compass is to keep your passions
mm-hmm.
in due bounds.
Exactly.
So if you're keeping your passions, you can be a passionate person
mm-hmm.
and allow that passion to rule you.
Right.
And at the slightest drop of a hat, that passion consumes you and unleashes on everybody around you.
I like that.
Sometimes that happens. Yeah. And you have to say, sometimes forgive me, or, if you offended someone, say, hey, I'm sorry.
But that is the lesson of the compass, is to keep that circle, right, that my passions can come to here and no further.
Right.
So, Arlen, tying into that, in the Fellowcraft degree, there is a mention of the spiraling staircase. So my question to you and to you, Ray, would be, when you first witnessed the degree, what did that spiral staircase represent to you? How did you interpret that?
Want to go first?
Well,
I always
I
make
mean,
you go first. So,
to me,
exactly.
it's taking, to me, simple steps to reach a higher goal, and you don't do it all at once,
Progress is incremental.
Progress is
Right.
incremental, and we learn from our mistakes, and we pick ourselves up, and we dust ourselves off, and we put one foot in front of the other again, and always attempting to do better. I'm sure there's these grand explanations of the staircase and things that people can give, but I mean, to me, it's that simple.
Yeah, for me, just moving up, you're elevating, you're up higher and stuff. So, like I said, there's people who can get a lot better explanation. If you want, I'll go.
Well, I
my
mean,
phone at?
on the Christian basis, I mean, I definitely recognize the matching, I guess, of sorts to Jacob's ladder. But even in that, progress towards that higher goal is incremental. It's one step at a time. You're not going to just go straight from being a completely new candidate to all the skills required and everything.
Exactly.
It's this endless progression towards a higher calling.
It's definitely a journey.
Sure.
All uphill.
Yes, all uphill. It's all
Yep.
struggle.
I
You're
know
not. It's
even-
not a downhill or downstairs spiral. It's an upstairs.
I think about myself, and you guys have young families and things, and I have grandchildren and things, and I think about the example that I want to be, for my grandchildren and for my children, and then the things we do and the things we say not only affect this generation, but it affects the next and the next and the next.
Yeah, and I'm big about, my behavior is what my daughter sees. So that's how she's going to judge a good man. And so if I'm out doing all kinds of crazy stuff, then she's going to be more likely to think, well, that's acceptable and be, if I had a boy, same thing. He watches what we do, and that's who he's going to want to be and who it becomes.
Same way, the way you talk,
Right.
the way your children are with you when you're buying and selling things and stuff, and know if you've cheated or wronged someone, or
Yeah, that's why I make it a habit, always. And it's easier for me to always do it and then not worry about, my daughter's with me, I better not say. I got to watch my language 'cause she's with me now. Instead, I just learn, just don't do it at all, and then I don't have to think about it. I just talk, people anyway.
And if we can't say it in front of our children or our mother or our pastor or priest, or should we be saying it at all?
Right.
I mean, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
All right. So, Arlen, I would ask you, what lessons from the Fellowcraft degree do you think can help a brother make better moral or ethical decisions?
Ask me something. I would go to the obligation.
Okay.
The obligations that we take, and the things that we say that we will do and say, will help us to be better men, in the lodge, and treat one another, the way that we should. Yeah.
Yeah. Sound like it's basically it's just it's going to be a lifelong journey of learning, continuously trying to improve ourselves, as we said, moving up the staircase, and continuously just finding ways to learn, educate ourselves, especially within the lodge, because there's so much education done here that, being a part of it to better ourselves.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, we're not God. We don't just wave our hand and a building is there.
Yeah.
We have to build that building brick by brick. And so it's one step at a time, one stair at a time, going up that spiral staircase, to tie back into that. So yeah, I agree that all of the aspects of the degree kind of roll into one, but the overall arcing theme throughout it is that progress is incremental. and it's not just going to be all at once, and you're just going to be hit with, a big flash of light, and you're just going to be perfect.
Woohoo! I'm a Master Mason now.
Well, if I could get my own rebound,
Yeah.
balance, I mean, it teaches balance in your life, just like using all your senses, your five senses, and taking elements from all of the liberal arts and sciences and using elements, depending on the circumstances to create balance in your life.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just need a second.
I need a second to think
Yep.
about it and read some of Daniel's
Yeah.
and give Daniel credit.
So how do you think the teachings of the degree help you find that balance?
Well,
Do you have a personal experience that you can pull from? Put you on the spot.
could you repeat that?
Do you have a personal experience where something in the fellowcraft degree maybe stuck out to you and was like, that's exactly what I needed in this moment?
Not necessarily something out of this degree, but I've seen brothers in action. I'll be out with them and maybe somebody give them too much change or something, and they, nobody knew it, but them, but they do the right thing. They say, hey, you made a mistake here. You've given me back too much money or whatever, To me, it's like I said before, it's about, balance and being straightforward and upfront with all mankind.
Right.
What?
You want to add to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Looking backwards, what was the most challenging or thought-provoking part of the degree for you personally? Ray.
Okay. Actually, for me, my problem, and like I said, the reason why I think I'm weak within the fellow craft degree is whenever I went through my EA, I went through standard, and then I got held over, which was good. But I got, I was going to be the candidate for the inspection for fellow craft. So there's a couple months, and the problem is within a couple months, I kind of got out of that learning. Whenever you go through EA, you get into that routine of memorizing and studying. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I had that break and I was like, oh, what I do? And it got me out of it. And so whenever fellowcraft came, I went through my fellowcraft degree, then it was like I was out of that rhythm and I had to try to get myself back into it, and it goes back to the fellowcraft. I mean, that's what it's all about, education, learning and stuff. But, I'd lost my rhythm and had to try to get it back just so I could start, getting back into the fellowcraft, learning the degree and stuff like that.
So, I think that's one thing that kind of makes it a little difficult when we bring new people into the lodge. You're not always around someone that can be, help you learn the work and your catechisms and things that you got to do on a daily basis. And I think the benefit that I had when I came through was I had family members that were here that, that I were around them all the time. It wasn't that we had to make a special meeting to study or whatever. I was around them a lot. And that's what we worked on. Right. We focused on it. And they were able to relate stories and experiences they had, little things that happened along the way and they would stop you whenever you were working on your work. They would stop you and say, now, you remember where you were when this happened in the lodge. And it made you stop and think about things, and you put it in a little better perspective.
Yeah, so that's my problem is I got lazy, like a better word, and like I said, you were around other people. For me, the only person I really knew at that point, because I'd only been in for a month or so, was my coach. And so, we really didn't meet up a whole lot. And so whenever I had that break, it was, almost like summer break to me. And you know how whenever you go on a summer break, then you go back to school, like, and so that's kind of where I was at.
If you had a good mentor, you never forget them. I mean, your mentor, your coach, your master craftsman, people refer to them with different names, but you build a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed my coach. It's not his fault, it's definitely mistake on my part. But, looking back on it, now I know I need to stay learning, But at that time, I didn't realize the importance of it. I just thought, okay, I'll come through and I'll get be EA. Okay, I'll be a fellow craftsman. Okay, I'm a master mason. Woohoo! I get to wear the square and compass. But looking back, I understand the importance of, even if I have a break, to continue studying. You know, there's even as an Entered Apprentice, there's stuff you can always find and read. You know, I've got a book now. It's actually a 3-book series. One is just over EA, the other one's just over fellowcraft, and last one's just over. So I mean, there's stuff you can still be out there searching, researching, and learning, and keeping your mind engaged, so you don't get that break like I did.
Arlen, if you could give one piece of advice to a brother who's just been passed the degree of fellowcraft, what would it be?
Stay involved, take it slow, come to as many meetings as you can, and, you know, learn from the brothers around you. We have a resource of some great men here at the lodge that you can learn from moral lessons to spiritual lessons. I mean, it's just, we have an endless supply of knowledge here at the lodge. And guys are willing to help you any way they can. But just my best advice would be to stay involved. Take it slow and stay involved.
Ray, would you want to add to that?
Yeah, just don't get focused on the Master Mason. Instead, focus on the fellowcraft while you're there, because you know the Master Mason's the next degree. That's what we're shooting for. But if you start worrying more about, okay, when am I going to get this done so I can get up to Master Mason, you're going to miss out on the fellowcraft.
So sounds like what you're saying is more like try to use a metaphor, to squeeze that and get as much juice out of it as you can.
Right. Yeah.
You know, don't be focused on the finish line. Focus
Exactly.
more on the degree that you're on, and get every ounce of it as you can out of it.
Yeah.
Visit some other lodges, find your coach, your mentor, or other brothers in the lodges. You know, the 12th district here in southeastern Ohio is a large district. There's degrees going on almost every night of the week somewhere. You know, visit other lodges with your coach or mentor, witness other degrees, and get to know people.
Yeah, 'cause you can go back and watch an EA degree. At least I know here in Ohio, you can go to watch an EA degree or a fellowcraft degree. Whatever degree you're at, you can do it. So you can't go to a Master Mason, but you can at least go see some of the ones where you're at, or even the EA, which I always recommend, especially EAs, to go see those EA degrees. That helps reinforce what you went through.
Yeah.
And the same thing with fellowcraft. By going and watching a fellowcraft, it reinforces what you'd went to, or maybe whenever you're blindfolded, you can see what was going through.
All right. So last words, closing thoughts. Arlen, since I've been hammering with the first question all night.
I would just like to say I'm thankful for everybody that watches and listens to our podcast and watches us on YouTube and friends us on Facebook and X and all the social media platforms. If you're not a Mason, knock on the door of your local lodge and go to the Grand Lodge website of whatever state or province or country that you live in, and seek more information. Masons are there to reach out to you and to help you along the way.
I just want to thank everybody for watching as well, or listening in. Thank Daniel for being here. I think you need to be on this side of the table more.
Okay.
So I actually enjoyed having you over here and talking with us. If anybody's want to get hold of us, you can reach us through email. It's labor to refresh podcast at gmail, or you can leave a comment on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever you're listening in at. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear back from people, to give us some feedback, either positive or negative, and just kind of let us know your thoughts and everything. So,
Arlen, you had mentioned reaching out to us on X. What is the handle for the X account?
Labor to refresh.
Labor to refresh. Okay. The number 2? Or
Yeah, the number 2.
Labor, the number 2.
Refresh.
Gotcha.
And then the email's the same way, labor, the number 2, refresh podcast at gmail.
And it's Labor to Refreshment on Facebook.
Okay.
That's right. I always forget. We got the Facebook now.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. Anything else?
Nope. Just hopefully you enjoyed watching this, and our next one will be over the Master Mason degree. Hopefully within a few weeks after this one's released, we'll have the opportunity to start recording the next one and get it ready. So make sure you're watching out for the next one. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on X or anywhere else, and then that way you can stay informed when our next episode is available as well.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
The viewpoints and opinions expressed in this video are solely those of the speakers and do not represent, reflect, or imply the official positions of the Grand Lodge of Ohio, Proctorville Lodge No. 550, or any affiliated Masonic bodies.